And that was me at 17 years old, right? I was ready to go.
Yeah.
So I joined staff. I moved to Santa Barbara. I moved out of home, and I started, on this journey. And God, there's just a lot of details, and I really don't know. I don't know that we need to get into all the details of 8 years of my life as a staff member. But
does staff mean you're paid? It's a job?
Well, it's supposed to be. And yes, you do get paid. But my paycheck, which was given in cash, by the way, every week, was, maybe $50, $20, $18. A really great week of pay was $75 or $100.
And then how are you paying your rent? How are you food?
I had to get another. At first, my parents were basically supporting me. And for about the first year, they were helping me out. I got it. I was working full time at the church. I had been sent to LA for training. So I was down there at the big blue buildings. I wasn't Sea Org yet. I was just a staff member. But one of the functions that happens in the Sea Org is they'll get staff from all the churches around, and they'll train them on stuff. And I was getting trained to be a classroom supervisor to teach Scientology to other people, and sort of administer the classes. And so I went down to LA to do that. I bombed because I was kind of full of myself, and I didn't really understand staff and how staff worked and how the Sea Org worked, and that I was supposed to be subservient. And there was just a bunch of stuff I didn't really understand yet. And so I got sent back to Santa Barbara after 4 months, and I thought I had failed, and they were okay with it. They didn't care. They were like, okay, good. Well, you're back. Let's get you to work and let's get going. And I started working. And after a year, my parents said, look, you got to get a job, man. We can't keep supporting you and supplementing your income and stuff. You really got to take care of yourself. And I agreed. I said, okay, fine. And I was reluctant, but I did it. I tried to leave staff at one point, but they kind of convinced me to stay. And there's a principle in Scientology, especially that is run on staff, hardcore, which is that if you want to leave, it's because of your own sins. It's what they call overts or overt acts, things you do that you wouldn't want somebody to do to you, right? Or things that you do that are destructive or harmful in some fashion. Even if that's just slacking off, it can be overt, or it can be, it can be an overt act, or it can be an act of omission, something you don't do that you should do, right? Either one of those can be, a violation of your moral code. And if you violate your own moral code often enough, then you'll want to leave the group because you're trying to protect the group from you, is the theory, right? You're such a bad person. So I'm making all these sacrifices and trying to make this go. And I ended up getting another job. So I'm working 80 hours a week now. 40 of those hours are pretty much unpaid. And the other 40 are just so I can have a job to have a roof over my head, get my own place. I'm struggling, back and forth with this because I'm conflicted, because I still believe I should be able to make money at the church. And the only reason we're not making enough money is because we're not working hard enough and getting the job done. It's not because there's something wrong with Scientology. It's never because there's something wrong with Scientology. It's us, right? We're the ones who aren't fulfilling the potential. So for 8 years, I struggled with this. And I got a job after the first year. I basically maintained outside jobs, but they were always second fiddle, second priority to my Scientology work. That was the stuff that was saving the world. So that's where my focus and attention was on. And then let's see. Lots of ups and downs, lots of, like I said, I tried to leave at one point, and they wrangled me back in. And actually a couple times I took off and tried to, say, look, this isn't for me anymore. But they would always kind of get you back in and, love bomb you and take care of you and treat you well and, and tell you, how needed you were. And
hey, Chris, let me ask you, it was 7 years you were working in that capacity?
8
years. Just without going into detail, what were the main responsibilities you had during those 8 years?
Okay, so first I was responsible for calling people in for the services that they had paid for. Sometimes people would come in, pay for classes, disappear, take off, not do them. So I was working on recovering them. Then I went back to LA the second time, and I succeeded in getting through the training to be a classroom supervisor. And I supervised classes for years. And I did some specialist training for that. Then I rose up. I got promoted to overseeing all of the class work and the counseling work for the church, right, for Santa Barbara. And I was sort of an executive type position, even though I was down, doing classroom supervising and stuff sometimes too. And I sort of oversaw that delivery until 1995. And then that's when I joined the Sea organization.
Okay, so that was your 8 years.
Yep.
Okay, so, and this reminds me of the Landmark Forum a little bit. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but basically, Landmark Forum is an organization that brings people in on weekends and trains you for 2.5 days on, again, life improvement stuff. My sense is it's basically just warmed over secular Buddhism that then has a really almost culty feel to it in terms of how high pressured sales, the event is to try and close other people to attend the Landmark Forum. But one of the most stunning things about Landmark Forum is that they use former participants as volunteers to run the events. So the number of people running any given Landmark Forum event who are paid is actually relatively small, but you become such a believer in the method that you use all these volunteers to help you run the actual seminars. And so it just sounds like people who get recruited into Scientology as employees or as workers do so as volunteers to help promote the basic skills training that Scientology offers. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the staff are all basically volunteers, and we're not really getting paid a whole lot. But
you're working on helping others go through the coursework, basically.
Oh yeah, but it's more advanced than just helping them. There's special training for all of these jobs.
Yeah.
And so it's not just wrangling people in and saying, hey, can you help him get through his study, or can you sit with him and tutor him a little bit? It's much, much, much more formalized than that. My training took months to get through.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the training was great. I'm just saying that it took me months to get through it because there's so much to learn about how to teach other people things according to L. Ron Hubbard.
But it's all about the infrastructure for the wealthier members or the members or the engagers who have access to financial resources. All the infrastructure is to help people move people through the
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Got it.
And the level I was at as a Scientology staff member in Santa Barbara was the lowest or one of the lower levels of this infrastructure. And there is a hierarchical system. And when I joined the Sea organization, I was moving up that hierarchy.
And again, the hierarchy is it called the bridge? What's it called?
No, that's the organization structure is just the organization. The bridge to total freedom is the services that are also hierarchically arranged. Everybody does this service, and then everybody does this one, and then everybody does this one. It's a set series of services. There might be some individual variations in what you do with a person at one level or another, but they move up these levels of spiritual awareness and ability, and that is the bridge to total freedom. The organizational structure is how that bridge is delivered.
And are there explicit levels in the organization, like actual levels?
There are, and the levels involve basically, there's only really two of them. There's staff, and then there's Sea Org.
Okay.
And the staff deliver a certain block of services up to a certain level, and beyond that level, you need Sea Org members, and Sea Org members deliver the rest of the bridge.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, that's how it breaks down.
Okay.
And so as a staff member, we were only responsible for people up to the level of clear on the grade chart or the bridge. So we could deliver all of those services. All of that stuff is not confidential. Anybody can go in, look at that stuff, read it. Look, there's nothing advanced about it. It's not the Xenu stuff.